On today's episode of Jeff Kelderman's Garage, we're talking my favorite movie and my alter ego, Joe Dirt. Hey, Jeff Kelderman here. Welcome to my garage. For each episode, we're going to sit down, we're going to grab a hot rod, bike, a race car, and we're going to sit down and talk about how I took this car and how we turned it into what it is today. And the prize in my collection, the original Joe Dirt movie car. So when you got deer tape tattooed on your ribs and this car comes up for sale at Barrett-Jackson, you're going to figure out a way to make it work. And I did. Speaking of American muscle, we've even got Kyle Petty's high school car right here. Hell, even my wife's car's 550 horsepower. We're even going to get out of the garage a little bit. We got a couple special places this thing's going that you're really going to like. You're going to follow me to the racetrack and see how good or maybe not so good a driver I am. You're going to see a lot of Viper action. 6-speed, old school, no traction control. What could go wrong? So I've had this car on my radar for over 20 years. I remember watching the movie in 2001 on Comedy Central and I fell in love with it. You know, me being a Mopar guy, it was just the coolest thing I'd ever seen. Hell, I got the poster way back in 2002, and I've had that wherever I've lived since then. And to bring a tear to your eye, I actually watched this car sell on eBay back in around 2002. It was like 12 grand when I was watching it. I think it sold for 18, 20, 22 grand. I don't remember the exact number. But to think about this thing sold for 15 times that earlier this year when me and my buddy Troy at Mopar's 5150 put together a plan. We're going to go in halves, and that way nobody's getting that besides me and him. And now, after finally getting my dream car, this thing is going to SEMA 2024 with me. So this car may be the most Mopar unicorn out there. Yeah, you've got your Hemi Daytonas, you got your Hemi 4-speeds, you've got different colors, you got one type of interior, one color this, one color that. But you know what? Everybody's familiar with the Joe Dirt car. So what this car is, it's just a 69 Charger that the company made into a Daytona clone. So back when I was looking at it on eBay, I had my Superbird, and I was kind of sitting there thinking, well, you know, if you got a metal nose for a Daytona, that's worth 5 or 6 grand. You know, a real wing's worth a couple grand. You know, man, there's only a few $1,000s. And back, you know, 2000, these cars were, you know, $15,000 for a Charger, you know, just a 383 car, nothing special. Actually, this was a 318 car. So, you know, it wasn't like this was a super rare car to begin with. So I was adding up the numbers and like, man, I just don't think the car is worth it. Well, I've done a lot of dumb things in my life, but not buying this in 2002 might be the worst. So this car is a very solid car. And, you know, as history goes, for making it the movie car, I mean, this is all airbrush and patina. I mean, this is not a rusty car. I mean, underneath it, it's extremely solid California car. So I just wish I knew, you know, when they were building this, how they came up with the ideas of doing the yellow, doing the blue, doing the white. I mean, I realized they were trying to make, you know, kind of a white trash looking, you know, redneck mobile, which they definitely did. But to actually get this much patina on it, it's really crazy. And when I say lots of patina on it, I know, because I'm having the exact car built on the blue Superbird that you see in the intros on this show is actually in Cedar Rapids getting painted right now to do an exact duplicate. So if they would have made a Superbird for the movie instead of the Daytona, this is what it would have looked like. So in early April this year, I was actually at the racetracks at the Ozarks running with some buddies, Vipers, and I get a text from my buddy Dalton down at Red Dirt Mopars. And Dalton's just as big a Mopar guy as I am. And he's like, dude, your car's coming. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, your car's coming up at Barrett-Jackson next weekend. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he sends me the actual listing of the Joe Dirt car listed in the Barrett-Jackson book. But when they listed it, it said Joe Dirt tribute car. And I was like, well, I don't really want a tribute car. I mean, if I'm going to do a tribute car, I'll build it myself. Well, made a few phone calls, and it turns out, yes, this was the real car that came over from the Netherlands, where it had been in a guy's museum for, I don't know, 8 or 10 years. So I was in a position where at the time I was wanting to get a Gen 5 ACRX a Viper, and I had been selling a few cars and putting a little money aside to pick one of these cars up. Well, that plan all went out the window when this car came up for sale. So, you know, this was Saturday. I actually had broke down, so we were on our way back, and, you know, it wasn't hour after I got home, I had my flights booked. It worked out great because my sister lives in West Palm Beach area. That's where the auction's gonna be. So I'm gonna go down there and see what we can do. So we're going down there and I'm thinking, man, I can go up to 200K. That's what I've got. You know, like I said, I've just sold a Charger 500 to Troy. I just sold my G1 Ram, which was my beloved. That was in episode 1 of Jeff Kelderman's Garage. Beautiful, beautiful truck. But I was making room, you know, for something special that I've always wanted. And this car, you know, needless to say, fit that bill. So I'm on my way down to Barrett Jackson, and I'm actually at the airport in Atlanta. And so I called Troy, and Troy actually had that blue Superbird that's in the beginning of the video for sale. And I started talking to him about that, and it was a pretty decent price. And I'm thinking, well, here's my thinking, Troy. I think I'm going to buy this Superbird from you because there's no way I'm going to be able to, you know, afford this car because I thought it was going to go for 250 to 300 grand, and I wasn't going to go up that high. So I'm like, I think what I'll do, Troy, is I'll buy your Superbird. I'm going to go down to the auction, and I'm going to take literally 500 pictures of this thing, up close, detail. And then I got my buddy Scott Takes up in Cedar Rapids at Underground Art Studios, who's, in my opinion, the best airbrush artist in the country. I'm going to have him build me the Joe Dirt car. And, you know, we kept talking, so I'm like, okay, so we made a deal on the blue Superbird. So I'm in the airport, we got that deal done. So we keep talking, and, you know, I'm like, well, I'm not going down to buy the car. I'm just going down to take pictures. And so I start talking to Troy a little bit, and I go, what are you going to bid on this car? And he goes, well, I'm probably going to go up to 200, 250. And he goes, but I'll let you bid first if you get the car, great. And I'm like, dude, there is no way in hell this car is going for $200,000. And I know a lot of people are watching this saying, well, this shitbox just sold for 20 grand 10 years ago. Why is it going to become that much more valuable? Well, it's because it's a one-off. It's a movie car. It's something that's very recognizable. And so I just out of the blue, I think, didn't even have this plan. I said, Troy, I said, well, why don't we go in halves? And that way we know we can leave with that car. And he's like, you know what, dude, I've never bought a car 50-50 with anybody, but you know, I know how bad you want the car. I know how bad I want the car. I'd rather own half the car than none of the car. So that's how that came about, going in 50-50s with Troy. So going to the auction, Troy and I'd come up, you know, our goal was to, you know, 300 grand was as much as we wanted to go. Of course, in the back of my mind, knowing I'm going to get the adrenaline going, we're going to blow by that, but at least try to keep it, you know, within 10% of that. So, you know, the day of the auction comes and I finally get to see the car in real life that I've dreamed about owning for over 20 years. And, you know, luckily I brought my, you know, spare pair of underwear, because after I creamed my shorts, seeing it for the first time, I was able to go change in the bathroom. So this car was everything I've ever wanted. And I know you people, I know it just seems weird that someone would want to spend that much money on this piece of shit. But, you know, as you've seen from the videos, you know, I've got deer tail on my ribs. You know, I've had Joe Dirt parties for years. I've got deer tail, J Deer tail. I've got all kinds of Joe Dirt license plates. It's just been something that I've always loved. And my kids, I mean, all three of them, there's not a line in the movie that they don't know, because they've probably seen it 200 times growing up. So the day the auction comes, and I had brought my my daughter Claire, her boyfriend Nick came along, and he was going to do some filming, and also had my nephew Max. He was with us, same thing, so we could do a little filming, because if we're going to get this, we want it. We want a video. We want it, you know, to be able to always have that memory with us. And I tell you what, there were so many people looking at this, and by the time, you know, the day went on, and, you know, pulling this into the auction there, I mean, my heart was beating. It was the most nervous I've ever been. So, you know, the auction goes by, it's a blur. You know, I called Troy. Troy's driving across Arizona or New Mexico or somewhere, going to go pick up some other cars. And obviously I'm spending a lot of his money too, so I wanted him to park. I couldn't hear anything he was saying except slow down, slow down. And it's so damn loud up there. You know, it was the auction really didn't take off too quick. You know, and I jumped in, I think, at about $120, thinking, man, maybe this thing is gonna die down. But, you know, when the dust settled, it hit 300. You'll watch the auction. They go from about 270 to 300, just like bang, bang.
So this car started life as a 1969 Dodge Charger that was actually nicely restored. If you pop the hood, you actually see it was probably a plumb crazy car and that 440 engine freshly built. Looks like a nice restoration, right? But then they went for the movie and made it into this sort of patina, faux tina, Joe Dirt Daytona. It's kind of funny. Joe Dirt's going after that Hemi GTX, but history's talking about $300,000 now. The current bid is sold. The Daytona is the more desirable car than the Hemi GTX.
Not sure what to say about that. But anyway.
So I'm pretty sure that was what the reserve is. This thing was not going for under 300. So the crazy thing is, Troy had been contacted from the guy over in the Netherlands to see if he wanted to buy this. And he, you know, the asking price was way over what we got it for. So in the long run, Troy and I ended up getting a little better deal than what the guy was asking. But the guy who sold it, he probably shorted probably 40 grand on the deal. I'm walking off the stage, you know, heart beats. I'm just so jacked up, you know, I'm all excited. And then the phone rings and I look out and guess who it is? My dad wanting to know, you did what? You spent how much? He's all fired up. He's not pissed, but he's like confused, as in, you just dropped that kind of coin without talking to your brother or me. And I had kind of talk him off the ledge about how we were, you know, went in on 50-50 on this. And boy, I tell you what, he's even drove this thing into town to graffiti night. So to see my 80-year-old dad so excited about the Joe Dirt, my dad will take this to the graffiti night or to any of the shows, and he'll walk out saying, hey, have you guys seen my parents? Anybody know where my parents are? So it just cracks me up. So the auction's over. We go and pay for this thing. I had, you know, already had my letter of credit, which wasn't as much as what I paid for it, but Barrett Jackson, you're writing a check and at least you got the bank's name on it. Guess what? They're cashing that check and they're taking that check. So I got online, got my Haggerty's, got this thing assured. And you know what we're gonna do? We're driving it. So where are we gonna drive it to? My sister's. It's 12 miles away. So Nick had his truck there. He did have a tow rope. We wanted to make sure if we broke down, we could at least take some back roads to get there. But I tell you what, the feeling of driving the Joe Dirt car from the auction to my sister's, it is something I'm never going to forget. Actually drives really good. I mean, I thought for something that's going to set for 10 years and plus years in a museum that it would drive terrible, but I mean, the brakes are great. All the lights worked, which was like, I was really concerned leaving Barrett Jackson. It's like, I don't even know if any of the lights work. They all work, even the headlights. So that was a surprise. Only thing we've done is we added a couple fans to the radiator, and so that we could have this at SEMA. We got approached by Ace's fuel injection. It's a kit I put on the Plymouth Superbird, the Deerte Bird. They wanted to know if we could do a deal where we could have this in their booth at SEMA. And obviously, everybody at the show is going to want to see the car in real life. I mean, half the people going to SEMA have seen the video of Barrett Jackson. So we slapped a fuel injection kit on. Well, I didn't. Robert did. I was out of town. But their new fuel injection kit. And she got a 440 motor that runs good. And now it's got fuel injection on it. So I honestly wouldn't be afraid to drive this thing on the power tour. But the only bad thing about this is there's no headliner in it. There's no carpet in it. Anything over a 70-degree day, this is like driving the Viper race car. I mean, it is a blast furnace in here, like a tanning bed. So today's a beautiful day, 75 degrees out, so I can open up the old side window there, get a nice breeze. Just a great car to be able to actually own something that you never thought was obtainable is fantastic. Just crazy that we got this. I mean, Richard Petty sat in here. we'll show you video here. Richard's not too impressed with this car.
Have you ever seen the movie Joe Dirt?
No.
No, I didn't think you had.
I have.
Yeah.
I seen that. That was the raggedest looking car on 4 wheels that I've ever seen.
Dennis Collins came out. He did a video of the shop, so he got to drive it. He was pretty excited to see the Joe Dirt car. And then we had Richard Rollins when we took it out to Sturgis. We had it at the Gas Monkey Garage Sturgis. So, you know, getting this car back stateside, it's not overseas anymore. You know, we're having a blast just getting it out in front of people. You know, we had it at a show a couple weekends ago, Hot Rods and Harleys up in Monticello, Iowa. We are taking this to Mopar 5150's first annual show in Celeste, Texas. And that's like November 2, we're going there. And then, I mean, at 6 o'clock on the dot when that show's over, this is getting loaded up. We're hauling ass to SEMA. It's going to be in the Aces fuel injection booth there. Then after SEMA, it comes back here. And then 2 weeks later, it goes to the Muscle Car and Corvette National Show in Chicago, where it's going to be sitting side by side with the Deer Tape Bird. So we're looking forward to putting a lot of smile on people's faces. So it's going to be really, really, really fun. I love seeing these people who just have seen the movie a gazillion times, and then to actually see their reaction when they actually get to see the car. Oh man, it's priceless. So I figured, you know, being a car show, we're going to talk about the car a little in depth. So this is a 70 Charger. It was original 318. It was a white car. The guy that was before had it when they were going to do the movie was going to do purple with a white stripe. So they painted under the hood purple and did the door jambs. So being a Daytona clone, this is a fiberglass front end. And for the movie, normally these are vacuum opened from original 69 and 70, you know, Dodge and Plymouth. But these actually have working motors on them. So they did a pretty nice job with the solenoids on it. And there's a couple holes cut in the bottom here because these Daytonas overheated real bad because you only had this little tiny opening. So you can tell where they cut in the movie. So this yellow from the article I read is a Sears, like literally painting a house yellow from the 70s. So that's where all the yellow came from. And the car was pretty much set up as a Daytona clone when the guy loaned it to the movie studio. And movie studio, he just basically gave it to him and said, just do whatever you want, just don't wreck it or, you know, change any of the sheet metal. So little did he know, the first time he saw this thing all patinaed out, I would have loved to have seen the reaction on his face. So, you know, you still got the little Joe Dirt, you know, the trucker girl, and, you know, the 8-ball and the handcuffs. The paint's really pretty wild how they did this cracking, and which gives it a totally different look. So if you don't realize it till you really start studying each individual fender, all the different spots on the fenders, then you get the doors, you got the rust, you know, on the rocker panels. But remember, this isn't a rusty car. This is just all patinaed to make it look that way. The tires, the front tires are 235/60 on these old Krager 15s. These are original Kragers. They've got the big, the shims that they used so that they could run two different bolt sizes back in the day. The rears are 295/50 15s, you know, pretty popular size for the back in the 70s. And then we got air shocks on here that gives it a little bit of rake. To keep this from rubbing if you'd have too much weight in it. And of course, you know, obviously the famous shot from the movie when he's pulling up to the radio station with the curb feelers really jumps out at you on this passenger side here.
You have them spinning tires, do you? You suck. You do.
So the rear wing is also fiberglass. Obviously, you painted it black to get a little bit of contrast. But the crazy thing is all you Mopar guys will know, you know, just think of the General Lee. You got that inset windshield. So to make this more accurate of a Daytona, this is actually a hatch out of a Vega, of all things. And it's pretty dang close. And they did a pretty damn good job of filling in that rear pocket to make it have that real Daytona look. So when they would do the window plugs, that would totally change the trunk. So they had to shorten the trunk, and they did that as well as this. So they cut the trunk, shortened that, and then they just did a bunch of primer and rust on top of the trunk. They painted the black here on the Charger. Really made the back look dirtied up. And this is the Joe Dirt license plate that they used during the movie. So coming around to the driver's side, you got more of the same on the Sears yellow and the rust. But the story on the door was, when they were working on the purple before the movie got it, the guys that were restoring it, this was a white car, and they were painting the purple, jamming it out, and they had actually had the door set in there, and they just kind of started using this for a test panel, and that just kind of stuck. The movie guys never took that off the car. One of the more famous thing too on this car is the police car front wheel. So that's just black like a spare tire. Like a POS. Had a flat tire, and they just never got around to putting a different tire on the matching Kragers. So the other thing they have to do when they're doing Daytona or Superbird clones is they have to extend the hood out because they use different fenders. I'm going to lift this up, and then we can look a little bit at the engine. So a few things have been done to this to try to get it to cool a little better. It's got aluminum radiator. And as I was saying earlier, it's going to SEMA, so it's going to be in the ACES fuel injection booth. So literally just a couple days ago, Robert, my install manager, spent all weekend putting the fuel injection kit on, did a nice clean job on it. And what's cool about this is with all the sensors now, it's got a little digital pad inside we can use to monitor the temperature and have more accurate gauges than maybe what it would have had in the factory. If you look right here, you could see the motor and the plates they made to run the headlights up and down. It's pretty slick. And you can see, obviously, the purple engine bay, bottom of the hood. Pretty nice job. I mean, like I said, it's a real solid car, and the guys that are building it were building this to be a daily driver. So the interior, obviously, from the movie. You notice it doesn't have a headliner, doesn't have carpet, just carpet squares. These seats, believe it or not, check these out. These are BMW seats. So they're not even Mopar seats. So they put the seat covers on it, which what the seat covers on it kind of looks like an old Mopar seat. Of course, the world famous footprint gas pedal. And, it's got 8-track player. It's not hooked up, but that's what in the beginning of the movie's showing, pushing the Leonard Skinner 8-track in there. Got the flaming skull there. We've got our 8-ball and handcuffs, and it's got a little moon ball. Just some cool stuff. And then this is kind of cool. The actual keys, got a skull and just something you would see. The life of a carny leaves me free and untethered type of look. So, and he's got an extra water temp gauge on this. So without any insulation, this thing gets super hot. It's like a tanning bed. Setting a stoplights is brutal if it's over 75 degrees. But if you're moving down the road, you pop these vent windows open, it's not too bad. And then, of course, the little, I think that's a 10 or 11-inch chain link steering wheel. I mean, you could still find these things. What's crazy is when we were building the Deer Tape Bird to match, I mean, you pop that up, that's a Grant steering wheel, and it's still in production today. So you look behind you, there's no bottom piece of the seat. The back seat is there, and then it doesn't have any trim on the back either. So, but like I was telling you, all the lights work. Dome lights work, turn signals work, hazards, brakes, turns, all the lights work on this thing. It was really surprising to find that out. Yeah, so it's kind of wild, kind of like Joe Dirt searching for his parents. I've been kind of searching for this car or wishing I had it for 23 years now. So I got to give a big shout out to Troy at Mopar's 5150, because without him and I teaming up, this wouldn't have happened. So as Joe Dirt would tell you, you can't have no in your heart. So I got this is my hunting room / junk room, and this it got so much stuff from the movie. This is the actual stash. You see, you're telling me you're so ingrained with DNA white trash that your facial hair grows in all white trashy like that? Well, yeah. But, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the Cracker Jack box that was on the dash, just packed full of stuff. Who doesn't want their Mountain Dew can? Posters. So, you know, so you got a lot of the movie stuff. I mean, obviously you got the mop and the bucket, and then you got all this other, you know, certificates of authenticity. This is for the shirt and mullet. That's just, you know, posters. The guy in the museum over in Netherlands had a bunch of posters. You know, Ricky Daniels. Got an autographed David Spade thing when he's outside talking about rescuing the kids. It was really Clem that did it. But he was on witness protection. There you got a bunch of magazine articles that are all laminated. So here's the Barrett Jackson stuff. So there it is. Look at it. I just flip right to it. It's magic. So here's a Joe Dirt car, and there's a truck my cousin built that had our bumpers and the air ride suspension. So right there, Kelderman air suspension, and underneath it's a Joe Dirt car. So I guess that means it is meant to be. I mean, there's shit in here. There's a bunch of like production stuff too. Some hats. That looks like that was David Spade. There's another one right here. Obviously, he saw the shirt I was wearing, Mr. Dirt, which I believe is this shirt right here in the movie when he is the janitor cleaning up the pile of puke. Now, speaking of hooking up, ooh, I haven't seen this raw Joe Dirt. I might put that on the deer tape bird. Get that done. There's just a bunch of photos that came with it. So this is actually, oh, okay, so that's what the dash is in the opening scene when he's driving to work. KXLA, I think. WKXLA, something like that. Joe Deer Tay reporting for work. Don't church it up. What you mean, Joe Dirt? This might have been the one that was actually in the movie. Let's see what else we got. There's a bunch of just stuff and paperwork from building it, and you know, there's all kinds of like original movie stuff. Like here's the actual script, but I looked through it and reading. I think literally 50% of the movie is different than what was actually in the original. They used to call it, originally it was going to be called The Adventures of Joe Dirt. And this movie, I remember going by our local movie theater and seeing it on the board, and I didn't go to it, but it was, it flopped. I mean, it got pulled halfway through, so it's kind of been, you know, more of a Comedy Central legend. Here's Joe Dirt, just all kinds of stuff, and this is a bunch of, I guess, the movie reel. I don't know what that ever do with it, but kind of weird. So, we got here, we got just a bunch of titles and paperwork from this car when they bought it. Insurance card. Here's your check for half the amount I need for you to send me an invoice for $2,500. Make it out to Boulevard Films, Joe Dirt. Here's the phone number for any questions. As soon as we get the invoice, we'll cut you a rest for $1,250. So I don't know if it was $2,500 for the car or $2,500 for reworking the car. I don't know. And I know a lot about the movie, but I don't know all that much about the actual building of the car. I do know that there's a ton of these auto traders in here, and I've never sat down to actually see which one it is that he was holding when he was in the hole. He puts Joe Dirt in the hole with Buffalo Bob, but just all kinds of stuff. So anyway, I haven't really went through and put any of this on display because, honest truth, I get the car till next April, then it's going to go back down to Troy, so he gets it for the next 12 months. I got the first 12 months, but then I'm going to have the deer tape bird that I'll be able to drive around every day. Hit the like button, subscribe button, tell your friends, tell your enemies, anybody who wants to hang out with the Kelderman crew. You can find us at Kelderman Trucks on Instagram. I'm at jdeerte on Instagram. And on YouTube, we're Kelderman Manufacturing. Same thing on Facebook.